Hiya, I'm Emma from Hip Pop, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own kombucha at home. I'm going to show you how easy it is and why we think homemade kombucha really is the best. So first of all, just a little bit about equipment. You don't really need anything special. The only thing you need that may be a little bit out of the ordinary is a lovely glass jar that you can ferment in. Make sure all your equipment is nice and clean. Wash your hands. It's really good practice just to sterilise the jar. You can do that if you've got a good hot dishwasher, or just pop it in the oven for 20 minutes on a low temperature, 100, 120 or something like that, and then you're good to go. Okay, so before we get cracking, I'll just explain a little bit about what kombucha is. So kombucha is lovely tea that's been fermented with a culture made of bacteria and yeast, and the fermentation process transforms sweet tea into the beautiful, tart, zingy, gorgeous, healthy drink we all know and love as kombucha. So first of all, in terms of ingredients, let's start with the tea. What you want to do is make your kombucha from tea. So by that, I mean tea that's made from Camellia sinensis. So that could be black tea, like an English breakfast, green tea, oolong tea, or white tea. All of those teas impart a different flavour to the finished kombucha. So if you use a pure black tea, it's going to be quite punchy, almost cidery when it's finished. Whereas if you use a lighter tea, a white tea, the kombucha itself is a lot lighter, and it's almost got a sort of lighter Prosecco type quality about it. And you can mix up the teas, which is what I'm going to do today. So at Hip Pop, we tend to use, or not tend to actually, we do use for our base kombucha a blend that's about 2/3 green tea and 1/3 black, because we think that's just a really classic kombucha blend. I'm going to show you how to make a litre of tea, so it's dead easy for you to scale your recipes up to 2 litres, 3 litres, 4 litres or whatever. Now there are 2 different ways you can make the tea. You can just make a litre of tea like you'd make a cup of tea, like this. So at the brewery we tend to use loose leaf tea. You get better extraction, you know, quality of the tea tends to be better, but you can use tea bags as well if you like. So I've just decanted my loose leaf into this little tea dongle and just pop it on there, and then you can just do this, get your hot water, so it's got the green and black in there, and then just let that steep for sort of 10 to 15 minutes, much like you would a normal cup of tea. So after you've let the litre of tea steep for sort of 12-15 minutes, I'm just going to take out my little tea dongle and pop it to one side. Important question, how much tea to use? So for a litre of tea, you want to use around 3 grams of tea. And 3 grams of tea is about 2.5 to 3 teaspoons or 2 to 3 tea bags. So now I've got my hot tea, the next thing I'm going to do is add the sugar. Sugar, again, really important to think about your ingredients. We tend to use a lovely unrefined white sugar, but to be honest, yeast and bacteria are not that fussy. The important thing is that you use a white sugar. Try not to use any of the sort of darker sugars, because they've got a lot of molasses in them and that's less easy for the culture to cope with. So I'm just going to put in 50 grams of sugar in here. 50 grams of sugar per litre. That's around about what you need to aim for. People have different preferences. Some people like to have it a little bit sweeter than that, but at home, for home brewing, I found 50 grams a litre is kind of bang on. So I'm just going to dissolve that sugar. So this is now still pretty hot, and for the yeast and bacteria to be able to ferment sort of optimally, then you need the liquid to be at room temperature. So I'm just going to pop that over there and let it cool. A slightly different way to make your tea is to make a tea concentrate. This is really useful if you are making a bigger volume of tea. So if you want to make sort of 3, 4, 5 litres or whatever, because it's a lot faster than the method I just showed you. So you've got the same amount of tea, 3 grams per litre. And then I'm getting my kettle. So instead of filling it up to a litre, just fill it up to halfway, sort of 500 ml. Let it steep. Let it steep for longer than the other method. So you probably want to let it steep for maybe half an hour. So when your 30 minutes is up, just take out your tea ball and pop in 50 grams of sugar so it dissolves, like so. Just get some cold water. And then what you're going to do is just top it up with cold water to make it a litre. So you end up with exactly the same tea, sweet tea, as you did with the other method, but it's a lot quicker. Still really important though that you let it cool to room temperature. So that's what I'm going to do now. So now what I'm going to do is just decant the tea into this jar. These jars, Kilner type jars, all really nifty. Just take all the top stuff off, like so. And just pour in your tea. Just checking that it's at room temperature. And now we're ready to add the culture. Okay, so here is our kombucha culture. Kombucha culture is known as a SCOBY, and SCOBY stands for a symbiotic colony of bacteria and yeast. So symbiotic means that these two sorts of microbes are working together. Sometimes they compete with each other a little bit, but generally they're working together to ferment, to transform this sweet tea into kombucha. And SCOBY can really come in 2 forms. So what SCOBY actually is basically really fermented kombucha. So very fermented kombucha that's been fermenting for sort of 2-3 more weeks is very acidic in nature, and it'll have lots of yeast and bacteria whizzing around. And you can have liquid SCOBY like this, so basically really fermented kombucha, and then you can have SCOBY pellicle type SCOBY, which is this, and this is what forms on top of the liquid, which I'll show you. Often, and when you look online, people talk about the SCOBY and they talk about this. They're kind of talking about this as SCOBY, and it is SCOBY, but it's not the most important thing. It's actually the liquid that's the really important thing. So what we're going to do now is add 20% liquid to the tea. So we've got a litre of tea here, and I'm going to add 200 millilitres of SCOBY. So here we go. If you smell it, it's got a lovely apple cider vinegar tang to it. I'm going to do 200 ml. Just pour that in. So we run lots of kombucha workshops, and one of the big questions we always get asked is, how do I know if my kombucha is okay? How do I know if it's gone mouldy? That sort of thing. So what's going to happen when the fermentation process happens is you're going to get the pellicle, the sort of jelly-like SCOBY, forming on the surface of the liquid, and it looks like this beauty here. So this is a little dinky one that's formed on the top of a jar the same size as the one I've showed you. So you can see it's like a kind of gelatinous blobby type thing, and if you look closely you can see sort of brown stuff on it. Do you see that? Like a brown trail, and often that tends to form underneath at the base of the SCOBY, and that's the thing that people often tend to worry about. They're thinking, is that mould? Has it gone weird? That's actually yeast. Totally normal sign of a really healthy SCOBY. Yeast can sometimes be black, stringy, looks pretty weird. It's all good. So like I say, you don't really need to transfer this from jar to jar, because basically you're just going to get another SCOBY forming on the top, but I like to keep them, and it does sort of protect the liquid. There we go. So what you need to do now is cover your jar to protect it from the elements. So I'm just going to get a couple of pieces of kitchen roll on the top, like so. And then all you need is an elastic band or like a hair bobble type thing, and you just pop that over the top. Kombucha is an aerobic fermentation, so it needs the air, but you need to protect it, particularly in summer when you've got things like fruit flies flying around. All you need to do then is just find a nice little place for it in the kitchen where it can sit happily at room temperature for sort of 10 to 14 days. And what's going to happen during this time is, first of all, the yeast is going to get busy. So yeast want to eat sugar. So the yeast are going to whiz around consuming the sugar in the tea. And once that's happened for a few days, that's when the bacteria start to get involved. Sort of after 10 days, give it a little try, have a taste. It should still have an element of sweetness to it, but it'll definitely have more zinginess to it. And that's because the kombucha fermentation process moves the sweet tea to a more acidic, zingy kombucha. So just try it and see what you think. If you like it, then you're ready to bottle the kombucha that you want to drink and keep some back. You need to keep another 200 millilitres back, and your little kombucha blobby thing, which here is sunk to the bottom, because that's what you use to start the process all over again. But what we're going to do now is just decant some of the liquid into here. Remember, it's really important to reserve some of the liquid because you're going to use this to repeat the whole process again. And I'm going to take one of these flip top type bottles. I'm just going to pour in the finished kombucha. Now what you can do before you add the finished kombucha, and this is where it gets really fun and where you can get kids involved, is add flavouring. So you can add ginger, you can add lemon, you can add strawberries, you can add blueberries, you can add herbs, some lovely combinations, apple and blackberry kombucha, strawberry and mint kombucha, strawberry and basil kombucha, all sorts of different things. Just pop a little bit, a teaspoon of ginger, a teaspoon of lemon, some whole fruits into the bottle. Or you can just have it plain like this one. I'll just top that up a little bit more. And you're going to pop the lid on. So what happens in a secondary fermentation is, especially if you've added fruits or lemon juice or whatever, you will have added more sugar. There's already some residual sugar in here, but you'll add more sugar. And so the microbes, the yeast and the bacteria, they get busy again, and the yeast, the whole process starts again in the bottle. So the yeast start to consume the sugar in the fruits, and then the bacteria get involved, and you get effectively another fermentation in the bottle, but you flavour it. And then what happens is the carbon dioxide is produced by the yeast. And in these bottles, when carbon dioxide is produced, it kind of floats out of the liquid, but because you've got this stopper on the top, there's nowhere for the carbon dioxide to go other than back into the liquid. So the carbon dioxide gets forced back into the liquid, and that's how you get fizzy kombucha made like this in a bottle. It's called secondary fermentation, and it's how a lot of beer is still made, fizzy beer. You need to be quite careful when you have finished fermenting in the bottle and you open it, because it can get quite fizzy and volatile. So I've been shot in the eye by a strawberry before. So a good sort of trick or tip is to pop the bottle in the fridge once you're happy with the secondary fermentation. And just as a note, secondary fermentation can take anywhere from sort of 2 to 5 or 6 days, depending on the sort of sugar content of whatever you've put in the bottle. So that's it, super easy, dead easy to have in the kitchen and around the house. You don't need any special equipment, and it's just such a fantastic way to incorporate a really healthy, beautiful drink into your life. Another question, where do I find SCOBY? So you can buy SCOBY online. There's a few different providers that are really good, and you'll end up with a sort of jelly SCOBY in a bag and the liquid that you need. You can also contact your friendly local kombucha brewery, and I'm sure they'll be happy to send you a bit of culture. You can certainly contact Hip Pop at any time and we'll pop you a bottle of our kombucha culture in the post. Please meet Ivy, our friendly kombucha dog. Hey Ivy. She's been desperate to get in here. Oh darling. Thanks for watching this video. If you've enjoyed this and any of our other content, please drop us a comment below or give us a like, and you can also find us on all socials. We've got a Facebook group where we've got lots of more tips and tricks for brewing your own kombucha, and thank you for watching.